When the mind becomes cluttered, life begins to feel heavy. Thoughts chase each other endlessly. Regrets from the past, worries about the future, doubts about who we are and what we are capable of. The more we think, the more entangled we become. To reset the mind means to return to the origin, to find stillness in the center of the storm. In the Shaolin way, the mind is not something to be fought against. It is to be understood. You cannot stop the waves of thought, but you can learn to stop being pulled by them. This is the beginning of mental discipline. The reset starts when you observe your thoughts without judging them, when you realize that you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness behind them. Many people believe that strength comes from the body, but real strength begins in the mind. The body can be trained to break bricks, but the mind can be trained to break illusions. When you master the mind, you master life. But mastery does not come through effort alone. It comes through understanding, patience, and practice. The Shaolin path teaches that everything begins with the breath. The breath is the bridge between body and mind. When the mind is scattered, the breath becomes shallow. When the breath becomes deep and calm, the mind follows. So when confusion rises, do not react. Sit, breathe, observe. Feel the air entering and leaving your body. Each breath washes away dust from the mirror of the mind. Discipline is not punishment. It is the act of remembering who you are. Every time you train your body, you train your mind. Every time you choose stillness over distraction, you return to your center. And in that center, you will find clarity. The Shaolin way does not promise an easier life. It promises a stronger you, one that can move through chaos without losing peace. Resetting the mind also means letting go of what no longer serves you. Anger, fear, comparison, and pride. These are weights that keep you bound to the ground. The more you hold on to them, the heavier life becomes. But when you release them, you begin to rise. You become light, flexible, and free. When the mind is reset, perception changes. The same problem that once seemed impossible now becomes a lesson. The same situation that caused frustration now brings awareness. You begin to understand that nothing outside of you truly disturbs your peace. Only your reaction does. This is true control, not over the world, but over yourself. Each morning, before you speak, before you move, take one moment to align your breath, your body, and your intention. Ask yourself, am I awake? Not just physically, but mentally. Because being awake means being present, not lost in thought, not trapped in memory, but fully alive in this moment. The Shaolin way to reset your mind is not a method. It is a way of living. Simplicity, awareness, balance. It is learning to walk through life with clarity, without resistance, without noise. When you train the mind, life itself becomes your practice ground. Every challenge, every delay, every failure, they are not enemies. They are teachers guiding you toward your inner stillness. To observe your thoughts without judgment is the beginning of mental freedom. Most people are not aware of how many thoughts move through their minds every moment they wake up and the stream begins. Memories, worries, opinions, fears, and comparisons. These thoughts create the emotional storms that shape how we feel, how we act, and how we see the world. The mind becomes a restless ocean, and when we are unaware, we are pulled and tossed by every wave that rises. To observe your thoughts means to step out of this ocean and stand on the shore, simply watching. When you begin to observe, you notice that thoughts come and go like clouds passing through the sky. Some are bright and gentle, others are dark and heavy, but none of them stay. Yet when we attach to them, we give them power. We begin to identify with every passing thought. If a negative idea appears, we believe we are negative. If a fearful thought arises, we think we are afraid. The truth is you are not the thought. You are the awareness that sees the thought. The space between you and your thoughts is where peace begins. Non-judgment is essential in this practice. The moment you label a thought as good or bad, you start another chain of thoughts. Judgment feeds the mind. It keeps it spinning. Observation, on the other hand, weakens its control. When you simply notice a thought, here is anger, or is doubt, or is pride, you begin to see the mind as a process rather than a fixed identity. This awareness slowly removes the power of destructive thinking patterns. Observation without judgment also means patience. The mind has been conditioned for years to react instantly. It judges everything. Yourself, others, situations, within seconds. To unlearn this habit requires discipline. It is not about stopping thoughts, it is about changing your relationship with them. When you stop fighting the mind, you start understanding it. When you understand it, it begins to calm down on its own. Silence appears not because you forced it, but because you created the space for it to arise naturally. Training this awareness happens in small moments. When you sit in meditation, notice how thoughts appear and disappear. When walking, be aware of each step, each breath. When emotion rises, instead of reacting, pause and watch. Ask yourself, who is aware of this thought? That simple question separates you from the content of your mind. Over time, you begin to realize that awareness is constant while thoughts are temporary. Awareness is the clear sky. Thoughts are only the weather passing through. Breath is the most direct path to the mind. Every emotion you experience is connected to how you breathe. When the mind is restless, the breath becomes shallow and fast. When the mind is calm, the breath is deep and smooth. This connection is not accidental. It is the bridge between body and consciousness. To control your breath is to guide your inner state. It is through the breath that you can reset the mind, return to balance, and reconnect with stillness. Many people overlook their breathing because it happens automatically, but the Shaolin path teaches that mastery begins with awareness of what is constant and subtle. When you bring your attention to your breath, you anchor yourself in the present moment. The wandering thoughts begin to fade because the mind cannot follow two paths at once. If you are fully aware of your breathing, you are not lost in the past or worrying about the future. You are here, alive, grounded in the rhythm of your own existence. The breath reflects truth. It cannot lie about your state. When anger arises, your breath turns sharp. When sadness fills you, it becomes heavy and slow. When you are in harmony, your breathing flows naturally, without force. By observing the breath, you can read your own mind without words. By controlling the breath, you can begin to shape the mind's reactions. Deep, steady breathing activates calmness in the nervous system, creating space between thought and action. It gives you control not through force, but through awareness. To calm the breath, start simply. Inhale through the nose, feeling the air move deep into the belly. Exhale slowly, letting go of tension with each breath. The goal is not to manipulate, but to harmonize. When the breath becomes smooth, thoughts lose their sharp edges. The energy of the body starts to flow more freely. You begin to feel lightness, focus, and quiet power arising from within. The mind that was once clouded begins to clear, just as still water reveals the reflection of the sky when the ripples settle. This practice is not limited to meditation. It continues in every moment of daily life. When you walk, breathe with awareness. When you face stress, return to your breath before you respond. When emotions build up, do not let them explode outward. Instead, guide your breathing inward, steady and calm. The breath becomes your constant companion, reminding you that peace is always one inhale away. Discipline is the foundation upon which inner strength is built. Without discipline, the mind becomes like a wild horse, running in every direction with no control. It reacts to impulses, emotions, and desires without awareness. But with discipline, the same energy that once caused confusion becomes focused, powerful, and steady. Discipline is not about restriction, it is about alignment. It brings structure to the mind and purpose to the actions. Through consistent practice, discipline transforms chaos into clarity. The Shaolin Way teaches that discipline is not a temporary effort, but a way of living. It is the quiet decision you make every day to rise above comfort and weakness. When you wake early to train your body or still your mind, you are not just exercising the physical form, you are shaping your character. The body obeys the mind, and the mind obeys discipline. When these two move together in harmony, balance arises. True discipline is not harsh, it is compassionate. It teaches you that strength is not found in control over others, but in control over yourself. Every small act of consistency builds strength. When you sit in meditation, even when you do not feel like it, when you breathe mindfully, even during frustration, when you choose silence instead of reaction, you strengthen the invisible muscle of willpower. Each repetition creates a pattern, and every pattern becomes part of who you are. Discipline, therefore, is not a burden but a form of freedom. It frees you from the slavery of distraction, laziness, and doubt. It allows you to move through life with direction rather than drifting wherever emotion takes you. Discipline also reveals the truth about effort. Many seek quick results, but the Shaolin path teaches patience through repetition. The same movement practiced 1,000 times refines not only the body, but also the mind. The same breath, taken again and again with awareness, polishes the heart. Through this repetition, discipline becomes meditation in motion. It burns away the impurities of impatience and teaches humility. A disciplined mind does not chase rewards, it finds satisfaction in the process itself. Without discipline, knowledge has no power. Understanding what is right is not the same as doing what is right. The gap between intention and action is bridged by discipline. It is what turns wisdom into experience. It is what keeps the mind grounded when emotions rise. Discipline provides stability when life becomes uncertain. It gives you the strength to stay centered, to respond with clarity instead of reaction. Letting go of emotions that no longer serve you is one of the deepest forms of inner cleansing. The mind holds on to experiences the same way the body holds tension. Every insult, every disappointment, every failure leaves an imprint. Over time, these memories and emotions accumulate, forming layers that cloud perception. You begin to see the present through the lens of the past. Fear, anger, guilt, and resentment become silent companions that shape every decision. To reset the mind, these old energies must be released. Holding on does not protect you, it only keeps you from moving forward. Letting go does not mean suppressing emotions or pretending they do not exist. It means facing them directly, understanding them, and allowing them to dissolve naturally. When anger appears, observe it. When sadness rises, breathe through it. Every emotion carries a message. Once the message is understood, the emotion has served its purpose and fades on its own. But when you cling to it or resist it, it stays. The act of letting go begins with acceptance. Acceptance opens the door to transformation. In the Shaolin way, emotions are seen as energies that can either empower or drain. Anger can be turned into determination, fear into awareness, sadness into compassion. Transformation begins when you stop labeling emotions as good or bad and start seeing them as teachers. Each one shows you where you are still attached, where you are still holding on. When you understand that emotions are temporary visitors, you stop identifying with them. You stop saying, I am angry, and start realizing anger is present. This small shift changes everything because it separates your identity from your reaction. Letting go also means releasing the desire to control everything. Many suffer not because of what happens, but because they cannot accept what happens. The more you resist life, the more suffering grows. Letting go invites trust. Trust in the flow of life, trust in the lessons behind pain, trust in your ability to adapt. When you surrender to what is, the weight begins to lift. This surrender is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is the understanding that not everything needs to be fixed, that sometimes peace is found not in fighting, but in allowing. To practice letting go, you must cultivate awareness. When a strong emotion arises, do not feed it with stories. Watch it like a flame that eventually burns itself out. Feel where it lives in your body, the tightness in the chest, the heat in the face, the heaviness in the stomach, and breathe into that space. Each conscious breath releases tension. Each act of awareness unties one more knot. Over time, the body becomes lighter, the mind becomes clearer, and the heart becomes open again. True peace is not found in a world free from challenges, but in the ability to remain undisturbed when those challenges arise. Mastery of the mind begins when you realize that you cannot always control what happens around you, but you can always control how you respond. Every situation in life is neutral until the mind gives it meaning. The same event that breaks one person can strengthen another, not because of the difference in circumstance, but because of the difference in reaction. To master your reactions is to master your inner world. The mind reacts automatically when untrained. It labels experiences, assigns emotions, and creates stories before awareness can even intervene. This habit is deeply ingrained, built through years of conditioning. The Shaolin way teaches that reaction is a chain that binds you to suffering. When you react impulsively, you give your power away to the outside world. But when you observe before responding, you regain control. You become the master instead of the slave of your emotions. Training this awareness begins with slowing down. Between every stimulus and response, there is a moment, a silent space where choice exists. Most people move so fast that they never notice this space. They act on impulse, driven by anger, fear, or desire. But when you cultivate mindfulness, that space begins to widen. You start to see your emotions arise like waves before they crash. In that instant, you can choose to respond with calm rather than chaos, with clarity instead of confusion. Controlling your reactions does not mean suppressing emotion. It means directing its energy consciously. Anger, when understood, becomes courage. Fear, when accepted, becomes alertness. Sadness, when observed, becomes compassion. The energy of emotion is not the problem, it is your relationship with it that determines whether it harms or heals. A trained mind transforms reaction into reflection. Instead of saying, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin to ask, "What can this teach me?" This inner mastery extends beyond meditation. It becomes part of daily living. When someone speaks harshly, you notice the rising impulse to defend, but you do not immediately respond. When plans fail, you feel frustration, but do not let it take your peace. In these moments, awareness stands guard like a silent warrior, protecting the mind from unnecessary disturbance. Over time, this awareness becomes natural. You no longer have to remind yourself to stay calm. Calmness becomes your default state. Stillness is not the absence of movement, but the presence of awareness. It is the state in which the mind is no longer scattered by distractions, emotions, or noise. When you cultivate stillness, you create space for clarity to emerge naturally. In a world filled with constant activity and endless stimulation, stillness becomes rare. Yet it is within stillness that the mind resets and the spirit aligns. The Shaolin way teaches that true strength comes not from doing more, but from being fully present in each moment. When the mind is constantly running, it becomes clouded. Decisions made in haste are often guided by emotion, not wisdom. But when you pause, when you allow yourself to be still even for a few breaths, everything begins to settle. The thoughts that once raced lose their grip, and what was once confusing becomes clear. Just as muddy water becomes transparent when left undisturbed, the mind too reveals its clarity when it is not forced or controlled. In stillness, the natural intelligence of life begins to speak quietly within you. Clarity cannot be achieved through thinking harder, it comes through seeing deeper. When you are still, you observe without interference. You see things as they are, not as you want them to be. This clear seeing dissolves illusions and opens the way to understanding. Stillness is not passive, it is alert and awake. It allows you to act with precision, to speak with intention, and to move with grace. Every action that arises from stillness carries power because it is born from awareness rather than impulse. To cultivate stillness, you must first learn to slow the rhythm of your daily life. When walking, walk slowly enough to feel each step. When speaking, speak with awareness of each word. When listening, listen without planning your reply. These small acts of mindfulness reconnect you with the present moment. The present is the only place where true life exists, and stillness is the doorway to that presence. It cannot be forced, only allowed. When you stop trying to reach stillness, it begins to unfold naturally. Self-mastery grows from this inner quiet. The more you practice stillness, the less power external circumstances have over you. You begin to notice emotions arise without being carried away by them. You sense distractions before they pull you from focus. This awareness sharpens your perception like a sword polished through patience and repetition. You become both calm and strong, soft yet unshakable. The storms outside no longer disturb the peace within because your foundation rests in stillness. Stillness also reveals the essence of who you are beyond thought and identity. Beneath the noise of the mind lies an awareness that does not change, that is unaffected by success or failure, gain or loss. When you rest in that awareness, you experience true freedom. Clarity shines not as something added, but as something uncovered. In that clarity, every action, every word, and every breath becomes a reflection of balance, wisdom, and peace